for some people, but look at this, dude. Oh my gosh. So hello gamers and welcome to the best sights in Phantom Forces Remastered. So basically in the past I did do a best sights video. I guess we can do this on the AUG 3 Para. At 10 kills we have the zpoint. Now the zpoint is very underrated because people say it's really bad. People say it's a ripoff reflex, and that's kind of true. Like, it's very similar to the reflex sight, but it's only 10 kills, so very easy to get. It has a 1.75 times zoom, which is a little bit more than some of the other sights like the Delta and stuff. But really the main draw is it's kind of obstructive. But for 10 kills, this is not bad at all. Like, there are some other sites that are more kills that are way worse in my opinion, and this is just like an overall good site that is 100% worth it. It's like the first site you get, and it's the first site you should use. Like, there's no real reason to use any other site except for like Delta and maybe like EOTech sites for this little kills. You know, you don't really need to use like half ring sight and stuff. If you prefer iron sights to this, understandable, but at least for me, if I'm just using a gun for the first time, this is not a bad option, and it's definitely one of the best sights in the game considering like how few kills it is and everything. Just makes it really easy to get used to and just use at you don't have a ton of kills on all your guns. It's like 1 second to get 10 kills. Like, I already have like 4. If I hadn't used the gun, I'd already be like halfway to getting this sight, you know? Actually kind of ridiculous how fast you can get this. You can get this if you're pretty good in one life, which is kind of insane. Like, the first time you pick up a gun, you can actually just unlock the sight that's actually pretty nice on it. Pretty crazy, you know? That's why it's so good overall. I have 6 kills and they're full kills, so I'd be over halfway to having this sight already in one life. The EOTechs are worth mentioning. They're not bad, but I wouldn't say they're some of the best sights in the game. They're kind of obstructive. I guess you could use this before you got the Delta, but I think it's like 50 kills for this one or 55, and this one's like 60, so you may as well just use the Delta sight after this. I usually go Z point to Delta. I usually skip over the other ones, and as you can probably tell, this is actually my main sight that I used on the AUG 3 Para, except now I use Coyote sight because Coyote sight is also very good, but we'll get to that one in a second. This sight is only 60 kills. You can get this in one game if you're pretty good. Like, you're not going to get it in one life usually, you know? Most people are not going to get 60 kills in one single life, but even a bad player can get it in like maybe less than an hour and stuff. I don't know. Depends on how good you are, I guess, but 60 kills is not bad, you know? Other sites like the reflex and stuff, those are going to be like 5 times the kills, so this is going to be a lot easier to get to. 1.5 times zoom, not very obstructive, really nice reticle, and it's just really good. It's probably the best sight in the entire game for like low kills, good zoom, but very nice on low recoil and high recoil guns. Not bad for snipers and DMRs. It really just does everything, you know? Objectively, our next sight is actually the Mars. Now, a lot of people aren't going to like this, but honestly, I've been kind of growing on this ever since I put it on my Beowulf ECR. It is not a bad sight. Like, I used to be kind of a hater of it. I just didn't really like it, but now I actually am kind of enjoying it. It has a 2 times zoom. It's a little bit high off your gun, which is pretty annoying. Like, you don't really shoot exactly where the laser is pointing. If you alt aim it, it's very apparent, especially on like the P90 and stuff. If you're not using another laser, like if you're using, for example, Civimag and Mars, so you can still have a laser and alt aim it, you're gonna notice that it's not gonna shoot like very close to where it's supposed to be shooting because the sight and the laser are so far off your gun, but it does lower recoil, makes your hip fire better, makes your recoil recovery speed better. Overall, this is a very very nice sight. It's not bad. 2 times zoom, which is a little bit higher than some of the other sights. I feel like Coyote kind of beats it out for like reticle wise and obstructive wise and kind of like how high off the gun it is, but this is not a bad sight. As I said, EOTech is also pretty good, but then you have this one not very good, but then you have the mini sight. In my opinion, this isn't very good. I'd say the Delta sight is objectively better. It's less kills, it's less obstructive, the reticle looks better, and I don't really like this sight, but a lot of people do, and it's not too bad. And then after that, there's some okay sights, and I usually skip all of these sights, but then the reflex sight is next. Now, the reflex sight is another sight that I have used quite a bit on this gun. It has the same zoom as the Delta, but is circular and has a dot instead of a triangle, which the Delta has, I guess, a delta. Is that what it's called? Like delta triangle thingy? I don't know. As you can see, the reflex is like, you guys already know the reflex is basically the most popular sight in the entire game, probably. If I were to guess, I'd say it's the most popular. If you have kills on a gun, it's probably gonna have the reflex on it because it's just a good sight, you know? The thing about this sight that makes it so good is basically it's got a nice dot. It's not super obstructive. There are definitely sights that are less obstructive, but it's not super high off of your gun. It has a 1.5 times zoom, which means the recoil feels lower. It has a nice dot. It's just overall a good sight. One of the best sights in the game. I think I did a top 10 sights, and it was like probably like top 5 of those sights. I'm not 100% sure because I have not, I don't remember what I put in that list. I might actually remake that list, but we'll see. If you guys want to see a remastered version of the top 10 sites, kind of missed some in the original, and I feel like I might want to change around some of the spots, you know, because Kosaku wasn't actually in the game when I made that, so Kosaku would be like at least top 5, you know, easily, maybe even top 3 or maybe even the best. Depends on how I rank them, but as you can see, this is a really good sight. It performs. It's literally just a Z point with like a little bit less zoom, so kind of lower feeling recoil. It's not quite as like obstructive. It just feels great, and it's very easy to use. For our next sight, we do have the Cobra sight. This is worth mentioning. I wouldn't say this is one of the best ones in the game. That's why why I'm going to skip over it, but it is worth using sometimes. But next up we have the coyote. Now the coyote, this is an interesting one because it does have a 2x zoom, but is very, very unobstructive. If you guys know me, I use coyote on all of my DMRs and a ton of sniper rifles because very unobstructive, a little bit extra zoom. I feel like this used to be more popular than the reflex, and the reflex kind of took it over, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, for me, delta, reflex, and coyote are like my main sights, although they're like everybody's main sights because they're just good sights, you know. Coyote sight is just good. I don't know, it just does everything pretty well. Now after that we have some more iron sights that kind of suck. ACOG, VCOG is pretty good. Microdot mini is okay, but next up I would say that the pilad 3 is a very, very underrated and good sight. This is an interesting sight because it's very good for hitting headshots, but it's not very good for like autos and stuff. I'd say this is probably like best for some DMRs. It's very high off of your gun and it just feels good. It's got that nice circle and then the dot in the middle, but it's kind of obstructive, like it's kind of just high off of your gun, and it feels kind of on a lot of guns that it shouldn't feel very on, because like I don't know what the zoom level is, probably 2 times I would have to guess, maybe 1.5, but it's got a little bit of an acquired taste. It's not bad. Definitely is better on certain guns than other guns, but I would say that overall it's a very, very nice sight and definitely worth checking out if you haven't. It is not bad at all. We can also mention Cobra EKP. It's basically just a Cobra sight. But next up we have Barska Electro. I'll go over this one really quickly. It's very nice and I do use it on like a couple of guns, but basically it's a coyote with a different reticle. It's slightly different model wise. It's actually a different sight. They could have just made it like a customizable option for the coyote, but in real life it is a different sight. It does actually have a different model in game, even though it looks like practically the same. They actually took the time to make a separate model that's just slightly different. It's actually kind of interesting. Another 2x zoom sight. Basically it has the dot, but it also has like a weird reticle around it, which is pretty nice. It doesn't really help with your aim or anything, and I feel like it's probably better to just run coyote because coyote is just less obstructive, sort of, because like the thing around the crosshair, you might like it, but it's not gonna help you aim or anything. It's just gonna kind of get in the way sometimes. It's pretty nice. And then next up you have kosaku sight. Now kosaku sight, you all know it makes the recoil feel really, really low because unlike other sights that have a 1.5 times or 2x zoom, this is only 1.2, so you barely zoom in, which makes it feel like you're like not even zooming in, which makes it kind of like alt aim. If you guys know alt aim, it doesn't really lower recoil, but it makes the recoil feel low because you're not really zooming in. Technically I am zooming in when I'm using this quite a bit more than you would normally because the higher FOV you have, basically watch my FOV. Every time I die my FOV goes down video because that actually explains how FOV works. I just unlocked Barska Electro, but I bought it. Feels bad. Rest in peace 200 credits that I just wasted for no reason. But yeah, as you can see, kosaku is like, it's a red dot mixed with alt aim. That's what I like to call it. It's a red dot mixed with alt aim. It does what a red dot does, but it also does stuff that alt aim does, where it makes camera recoil feel pretty low. After that, we have a couple of cool ones like bundeswehr sight. I think that's how you say it. This is actually not a bad sight because MG3K irons are actually pretty good, and this gives you alt aim. So if you don't have like anything else, for example, Maglite, AMT Terminator or something, this is not bad. It does give you an alt aim that you can turn off and on, which is pretty nice. Not super helpful, not the best alt aim in the game, but it's not too bad. But then you have OKP7. Now OKP7 is kind of underrated. It just looks nice. I don't know. It's got the green tint, which is kind of annoying. I wish I could remove that. It doesn't really super get in the way because it's not something like the microdot mini, I think, has like something like that, but it's a little bit more tinted. Like it doesn't really hurt on like how you can see, but it's kind of annoying to have like the green in the way. But in my opinion, it's probably one of the best reticles in the game. It just looks nice. It's just a nice looking sight. It's got the nice like circle. It looks cool. It runs pretty well. Not the best sight in the game or anything, but probably one of the best in my opinion. Now another sight we do have is the IWI sight. This is the TAR-21 iron sights, and while it's not technically like a red dot or anything, in my opinion, this and AAC flip up sight, which is the Honey Badger irons, these are the two best iron sights, and if you want to run iron sights, these are the ones to run. I don't know what it is about these. They just work so much better than any other iron sight you could ever use, and I do recommend them. But next up we have the DDHB reflex. This is another underrated one. I used to see this more, and I did rebuy it on the HK416 for some reason. Think like coyote mixed with reflex sort of. It has a nice reticle. It's not super obstructive, but it's kind of obstructive with like the dial on the side. But yeah, it's actually really nice. I don't really use it that much. I did use it on the HK416 for a while. Then I went to like reflex sight and stuff. I don't remember. But yeah, it just kind of goes hard. If you want something a little bit different, something a little bit like kind of underrated, not quite as used, this is actually the sight for you because it's really good. I want to use it on more guns because it just feels nice. Just something about it is just cool. I like the reticle. I like how the light actually looks. I don't know. It's like a 1.5 times zoom. I feel like 2. It doesn't really feel that zoomed in. And yeah, honestly, on sights like lower zoom is generally speaking better because lower feeling recoil. It's really weird because a lot of recoil in this game is just kind of camera recoil. The guns kind of just go wherever. Like I said, in camera recoil just makes it kind of annoying to see where you're shooting. But having a little bit more zoom can be helpful for hitting shots at range, which is why Coyote is kind of my sight for like longer range guns. Now, next up, I would say the DCL 120 is very good. Now, this one is kind it comes with a catch, alright? It actually lowers recoil, but only rotational recoil by 5%. Keep in mind, all guns do have rotational recoil, although some of them more than others. So on guns like the HK416, this is going to have a pretty nice effect on it, but on other guns, it's not going to be very good. But it is basically like an alt-aim that is a sight, but it's basically just like kosaku sight with more downsides, and it's kind of annoying. It makes your aiming speed a lot slower and your draw time kind of slow. Like, it takes a little bit longer to pull out the gun, which can be kind of annoying. Like, if you're going from secondary to primary or something, and you want to like actually get your gun out pretty fast, then this is going to be pretty annoying. However, it does make your camera recoil feel very, very low. It doesn't actually lower recoil by that much. It's only 5% maximum, but it's probably not even going to be 5% because most guns don't have a ton of rotational recoil, but it is not too bad. Kosaku OLED is worth mentioning, but Kosaku's better. OEG is also worth mentioning, but I would say that most of the time AMT Terminator is better. OEG is only good on like HK21, HK51B, and M231 in my opinion. It's very good on high recoil guns that kind of just shoot wherever, and if you want to know where they're shooting, then use OEG. But basically, this is a very nice alt-aim. Keep in mind that this gun is probably not one of the guns you're going to want to be using alt-aim on, because alt-aim is usually for high recoil and fast shooting guns. This is kind of neither. It's very low recoil. It's kind of fast shooting, but not super fast shooting, you know? But it's not too bad on the AUG 3 para. I would just say there are better options to use this on, but it's not too bad, you know? You got that nice alt-aim, very low recoil. It does actually lower recoil, not quite as much as the DCL 120. It only does what a red laser does, which basically is just like, it's kind of like a Mars, except I think Mars also lowers rotational recoil. Mars is basically DCL, but like has the 2x zoom and isn't as nice for some people, but look at this, dude. Oh my gosh. I mean, alt-aim, let's be real, dude. I used to use alt-aim on pretty much every single gun in the entire game. Like, I had this weird setup of AUG H-bar with muffler and AMT Terminator, which is weird because it was back when the AUG H-bar had no recoil, so I shouldn't have been running muffler. I should have been running muzzle booster. If you're running a sniper, VCOG 8X is probably my favorite sniper scope in the entire game. But then last up, we can skip all of these and go straight to Plague Insight. Now, Plague Insight, this involves a 2x zoom, which is not very good, as you can see, but then it has a scope with a 1x zoom. So it's a scope that doesn't zoom in, and this is what it looks like. You guys probably know this is maybe the best sight in the entire game because it doesn't actually slow your aiming speed or anything, handling or anything like that. However, it makes your gun have like no camera recoil at all. It even works on the M231, although the OEG kind of works better for it, but this is basically just like if you want to have a sight but also just like no recoil at all. This is probably one of the most underrated sights in the entire game. I made a video on it, and then Corny made a video on it, and then people got mad at Corny for making a video on it because they're like, he copied Strider, even though I didn't add this sight to the game. I didn't really care, but it was really funny, man. But yeah, overall, I'd say this is like one of the best sights in the entire game if you can like deal with the fact that it does like have quite a bit of just annoying like shade over, like it's just red, kind of annoying to aim with, and like it doesn't look very good on videos probably, but it is a very, very nice sight. I just don't really use it on a lot of guns because let's be real, when it really comes down to it, this is really good, but it's not really, I don't know, it's fun to use, but I don't know, something about it just makes it not the sight you always want to be running because the way it zooms in and everything and like the shade of color over your screen is kind of annoying sometimes. But I do run it on my G36C, which has like a lot of recoil because I run retracted stock on it, so it really does help with that. But yeah, overall, Plague Insight is an insanely good sight. I don't recommend you pre-buy it on a lot of guns because it is very expensive. It cost me $3,000, even though I have almost 800 kills on this gun to begin with. The more kills you have on a gun, the less expensive it is to pre-buy attachments. So other sights that I could mention as being very good is the ACOG is pretty nice. The KSC sight is actually pretty good. That's a Mark 11 irons. Microdot SRS is pretty good. Kosaku OLED is pretty good. Dual aperture sights are pretty good. Maglite is pretty fine, I guess. Although you get OEG before that, so just use OEG. To be fair, they are 2 kills away from each other, which is pretty funny. The other ACOGs are also pretty good. But basically, these sights that I unlocked here, and Kosaku, Barska, Electro, basically everything that I mentioned, all those are good. But yeah, I usually stick to Kosaku, Coyote, Delta sight. As you can see in most of these guns, I am running something like Kosaku, maybe Delta, or maybe something like that, but I am running Kosaku on a lot of guns now. Anyways, gamers, that is going to do it for the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and sub. I will be doing maybe grip guide next, maybe the best barrels, but we will see. But yeah, make sure to like and sub, but I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.